Hello, my name is Rich Howard, owner of Architectural Builder Supply. In this video, we're going to make a lock for a thick wooden door. The overview of what's happening is they've got an unusually thick door. I think it's 4-inch. So the question becomes is, how do you lock that door? So at the end of the day, there are not a lot of inexpensive options. There are expensive options. And the easiest and most robust is most certainly going to be a mortise lock. This job is outside of the envelope of what's commercially available, and that's the whole purpose of this video, what we're doing to make a lock for this door. Okay, the next potential lock platform was the Kaba Ilko 45 series. And why is that a platform? Well, because it's modular. And let me show you what the catalog looks like so I can show you what the lock looks like. Okay, this is what the 45 series looks like. It's a dead bolt. Mortise locks, cylindrical locks, you can have latches on those, obviously. Now, what a lot of people are doing nowadays actually is using just a roller latch to keep the door in the closed position and then a deadbolt. And that's where the 45 series comes into play because it is a deadbolt. I know that we were in the Accurate catalog earlier. Accurate actually has, they came out with this a few years ago. It's a mortise lock, cassette, roller latch, and then a bolt. 2-in-1 option. So the client could easily have done this as well. All we would have done is 2 long mortise cylinders. This body, roller latch, strike, although you'd need a custom strike, and a couple of mortise cylinders, or a mortise cylinder and a thumb turn. You know, the client already has a pull handle. That certainly is an option. Definitely going to need an extended lip strike. Donjo actually has extended lip strikes for roller latches. This would probably have worked, one of these strikes. Or Accurate would have made us a strike. A lot of times when it comes to thick doors and locks and a way to secure them, as I probably have mentioned, people realize they've spent all the time, and actually all this building material is not cheap because there's probably a lot of waste. So Accurate is a possible solution. So back to the Kaba 45 series. All right, so it's a dead bolt. It's a bolt. You can have single cylinder, you can have double cylinder. The word that I used was modular in the sense that this here is a standard builder's hardware mortise cylinder all day long. 1 in 5/32 diameter, 32 threads per inch, builder's hardware. There are 4 diameters of mortise cylinders. Okay, there's only one that you're going to encounter really in builder's hardware. There's a peanut cylinder from the 60s that were installed in aluminum doors. Those are 3/4 inch. There's 1 in 5/32 builder's hardware, which is this. There are 1.5 inch diameter, what they call jumbo mortise cylinders, which are known as master ring. If it's PF Corbin, Sargent had one. I don't think they called it master ring. And then there's mogul. Mogul is used in detention work. You're going to use this one, 1 in 5, the typical builder's hardware. The key doesn't matter what you stick in here, whether it be a typical mortise cylinder and a quickset keyway or a 2-inch long MTL 800 multi-lock high security restricted cylinder. It don't matter. You're just going to play with the length of the cylinder depending on the door thickness and where in relationship to the door thickness you're going to install it. If you're going to bias it towards the inside or the outside for whatever reason, like maybe what your jamb construction is like, okay, you can do that. You just are going to need to figure out what are my length of my cylinders are going to be, incorporating what the collar requires as well. If you're doing an unusual thickness, we don't do if you want a single cylinder, we don't do a thumb turn like this, because this will require a special tailpiece, which is the entire purpose of this video, making a custom tailpiece. You'll do a mortise cylinder thumb turn. All lock manufacturers will be able to provide unusual length thickness mortise cylinders, whether it be Yale or Corbin or Sargent or Schlage or on and on and on and on. The issue is sometimes that gets really expensive. If you want a 3-inch long mortise cylinder from Schlage, it's going to cost hundreds of dollars, several hundreds. Well, there's a company by the name of Major Manufacturing. They make security hardware and a lot of installation tools. They do have a means by which you can create long cylinders. So here it is, MCE 100 mortise cylinder extension kits. These are fixtures that you put on the mortise cylinder that you want to prep. You drill a hole and you tap a hole, and then you add the extension along with the proper drive cam, and you're in business. You pick the length of the extension you need based on what you're using, based on what you need, what length you have to arrive at, the proper drive cam, and voila, you've got a long mortise cylinder. I think I've made these as long as 3.5 inch. I know I've got videos out there of me doing it. And I've also just sold the client the parts for them to do it. There was one client in Italy that continues to buy hardware from us. He wants to do it himself. And I think just because you'll take note here that this appears to be not perfectly even, and that's because it's not perfectly even. I've made these and they're never quite perfectly even. I mean, I've made them where they're perfect, and I've also made them where they were less than perfect, and less than perfect is not really nice. These fixtures aren't laser beam straight when they clamp on, so a little learning how the tool works and then getting experience will make you better at it. The issue is where these holes are drilled and the diameter is, it needs to be perfect when you drill the backside of a mortise cylinder. Let me show you the backside of a mortise cylinder. This is the back of a Sargent cylinder. You'll see here that this has holes drilled and tapped in it. That's the concept of what you're doing when you extend cylinders. These holes are in the wrong place. But I think they do this because you can turn a mortise cylinder into a rim cylinder concept. Or perhaps it's like Schlage where it's become modular, where you can literally just add on the longer extensions is how they do it. But boy, do they charge for long cylinders. They really, really do. And that's why I either offer this service to clients or I just sell the parts. And the advantage of this is I keep all these extensions in stock and I keep the Kaba Ilko drive cams in stock. So if you need 2.5-inch polished chrome mortise cylinders that take a Schlage G keyway tomorrow, yeah, maybe not tomorrow, but we can do it really quickly because I've got Kaba Ilko 1.25 inch polished chrome C through K, and then I've got 1.25 inch extensions, and I've got the drive cams. So all I got to do is drill and tap 2 holes. So yeah, we could turn it around pretty quickly. So that's the advantage of the good old Kaba Ilko 45. Now, I had also mentioned multi-lock. And the reason I do is because, and whether it be ASA or Obloy or Yale or most definitely Medico, at the end of the day, if you've got a particular key system in place, it's a 45 series. So whatever mortise cylinder you want to stick in there, good, that's awesome. It's not a problem. And I'm showing you the multi-lock catalog because you can take something as cutting edge with patent protection till 2039 as a multi-lock mortise cylinder and run it into your standard deadbolt. That's an MTL 800. A lot of technology happening here. That's an alpha spring. That's really cool when you learn about what it actually does. Makes 3D printing currently impossible. I'm pretty sure that's safe to say. Let's look at a mortise cylinder. So these guys right out of the box can go to 2-inch. I don't have any way to extend these. I don't think there's a drive cam for multi-lock from Major. But how many times do you need something really longer than 2-inch? It's unusual. A job I had probably mentioned earlier, I don't recall if I did, Sargent 1.75 inch large format mortise cylinder housings. They can't make them 2-inch. That's the problem with that. Let's take a look at that. What I'm about to show you is why thick doors and locks are complicated and why you can get yourself into trouble. Let's take a look.
If you've not hit subscribe yet, we would very much appreciate if you did, and hopefully you're enjoying this video. Now, let's get back to it.
So this is a job that we supplied locks for a client, a large woodworking company in the outskirts suburbs of Chicago. Good quality people working for really big name clients. 2 inch and 3/4 thick doors with 1-inch applied panels extended outside. Left-hand doors, right-hand doors. So they're taking an 1 and 3/4 thick door and adding a 1-inch thick panel to the push side. Okay. Turns out that they've got Sargent large format interchangeable core and adding 1 inch. So what do they need? Cylinders that are an inch longer. We supplied them all the mortise locks, but it turns out that the client says, well, my Sargent key doesn't work in here. Well, you should have let us know. And the client says, yeah, and here's another thing. It's got to be interchangeable core. So the client comes to me and says, what do we do? So I reach out to Sargent. Oh, I tell the client we need longer cylinders, obviously, is the easy part. Reach out to Sargent. It turns out that in their large format mortise cylinder housings, the absolute longest they will make is 1 and 3/4 long. That's not going to be long enough. So we order the housings because the client had said, well, I'm going to have to make it work somehow, so let's just order them. We order them. A couple of weeks later, because these things take 6 weeks, the client says, you know what, I was a little worried about that, so I made a mock-up. And he says they're not going to be long enough. That's what, he took a 1 and 3/4 cylinder and stuck it in there. And his message to me is, what do we do? Give me some hardware that's going to fix this. And I'm thinking, yeah, I'm fresh out of rabbits and hats. I don't know how we're going to do this. But then I thought, well, wait a minute, we can solve this problem. For sure we can. Anyway, here is what I did to potentially solve the client's problem. Okay, when I got your email, I thought, okay, sure, great use for the CNC machine. And then I spent a little bit of time drawing this, and then, well, anyway, let's take a look at it. Half-inch thick aluminum 6061. I've got that laying in the shop. Should have edited the quantity of passes on that. Now we're looking at the opposite side. Ramp speed on the CNC. You know, of course, I did all this before I looked in the Accurate catalog, because I said to myself, no, Accurate's got something. I wasn't thinking that they had something so perfect, because there are other items. So, you know, here's an initial concept of what I was thinking. OD 1 and 3/4. 3/16 here, because this should be a 16th or thereabouts, that lip that's on there. 1 and 1/4 ID for the body here. 1 and 1/4 ID, and then the OD is probably 1 and 9/16 maybe, so that we didn't cut through this 1.5 inches, the OD of the mortise cylinder. So this is a little bit thicker than this. And actually, we could get real fancy here. We could take this vector that vector and do a on the line. It's nice. A little bit of V-groove, little chamfer on that. Anyway, doesn't make sense because yeah, whatever. It's fixturing the part down, and there's a technique that's out there that should have no problem with it. But you know, this is CNC machining. The programming, the running, the material. It's possible, and here's what it is. It's obviously just mill aluminums, and I haven't bought any powder coating equipment yet. Anyway, proof of concept, and then I looked in the Accurate catalog and realized I just wasted an hour. Thanks.
If you've not hit subscribe yet, we would very much appreciate if you did, and hopefully you're enjoying this video. Now, let's get back to it.
Okay, what the client started out wanting was the Yale 197 rim lock. It's a rim lock because the Yale 197 is installed on the perimeter of the door. It's a deadbolt, surface-mounted deadbolt, but it's called a rim lock. Call it a Jimmy-proof lock. Jimmy-proof really refers to the idea that the client's door swings in, if I recall. So his jamb, and I don't know what the jamb looks like, but it probably looks something like this. So you got your door in here. Well, that rim lock's going to sit in here. It's going to actually sit a little bit further out. Then your strike's going to be mounted out here. The whole issue is client needs a rim cylinder for a rim lock. That cylinder is going to sit out here. That body is going to come. You get the concept. There then needs to be a tailpiece on the back of that rim cylinder. And it's the tailpiece that is the purpose of this video. There is no tailpiece or connecting bar, is what Sargent calls them. That's long enough for this door application. So we're going to weld a tailpiece for the client. I'm going to get the client their Yale 197. Here's our rim cylinder, what it needs to look like. You can't see the tailpiece really well, but there it is. Connecting bar, Yale also calls it. We're going to use Kaba Ilko. And this is their extra long tailpiece. The issue is this is only 2 3/8 long. You've got a rim cylinder. And the body itself of the rim cylinder is, I don't know, let's say 1 inch. And then you've got a 2 3/8 long tailpiece. Well, that's only 3 3/8. You're not going to get far enough. So I'm going to take a Kaba Ilko rim cylinder. I'm going to take its tailpiece. I'm going to take the 862A and I'm going to weld them together and then cut them to length. And that's the purpose of this video. That's what the client wants. It's going to look really nice when it's all done. We're going to probably stress test my weld. And the next part of this video is going to be literally setting up a welder from the box all the way to running through the entire project. And we'll see how good of a welder I am. Well, let's switch back to the screen view, and we'll talk about why the welding is important, and then we'll move on to the tool setup.
Again, thank you for watching, and if you've enjoyed this video, please click thumbs up, please subscribe, and maybe even send the video to someone that you know. Thank you.